Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. Next case. Who's reading? I've heard too much from you guys. That's your couple. Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Nachmani.
Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Nachmani. Amar Rabbi Yishia. Tima v'ho Tzvara. Mashahina leha. Chamin she'kotmo.
Kol Tzarakan.
Tashel shebishul.
Stop. So what's the case?
Tima, the ashes are consumed.
Okay. And the hot water was heated up.
Or
or
the food was
cooked completely. Okay. So what's the case? What's the case?
The thing was what's called
The thing?
No, the tima was cured and then it was cut.
Okay. So you put whatever you put on top, and then whatever that was is gone. Okay. So the Gemara says, what are you allowed to do? You're allowed to put edible food. Forget the chamin, it's a separate issue. But edible food onto that fire. Okay? All right. Which would seem to imply what? No, you cheater. That's what the Gemara's about to say. Before you even say that.
You said food. You're allowed to put food on it.
Yeah, no, but we don't know anything about Misnaf Yafal at this point. I'm saying at this point in time, all the Gemara is telling you is that, oh, thank you, I'll do Shia. Right? And it's certainly like the Chachamim, right? So the Gemara is going to say, I'm just trying to get the flow of the Gemara. The Gemara is going to say, well, what do we need to know this for? Yes, Isaac. Mutter. Okay, so we're going to talk about this briefly, but we're not going to define it yet. Okay, just to get the facts down. We'll come back to it when we do the Machlokas in the run. But for now, what's the Gemara telling you? Why is this case different? What's new about this case? Mistamak V'Yafalo. What's Mistamak V'Yafalo? Factually, what's Mistamak V'Yafalo?
Meaning you're allowed to make it wrong.
That's good. You're right. I mean, what?
You're allowed to make it
Well, there's some type of further cooking.
Yeah.
Okay, even though the food is,
edible,
but
it's not. But you can still change it.
okay, good. That's good. Okay. Right, but that's already like, I'm not disagreeing with you, you're right, but that's already like a little of a conceptualization, you know what I mean? Like that's what Rashi tells you, what's mistamach mean? It means that it's the moisture's changing, okay?
Like Shani Hafad Tima Ihachi Mai
Lememra Huvara. So 1 second. So then, what do we learn from this case up to this point? We learn that you've done katima on the fire, right? And you can still do mistamach v'yafalo. If that's the case, why did the Gemara have to give us this case of katma v'huvara? Why did the Gemara just say katma? Because if the chiddush is mistamach v'yafalo, the failing of the katima is irrelevant. Clear? There's no need to know about the failing of the katima. So now, this is we're going to start defining. So what does the Gemara say? Which means what? You know what that means. Look at the word. Now, there's a tzadi, a resh, and a chaf, which means sarach.
Yeah.
So it's the same word. You need it, right? It's trichale. You need it. Sometimes in Aramaic, there'll be like extra letters that are blinding you to the Hebrew.
Yeah, like use like haze.
I know. So it's trichale. Why? Mahu desema. Okay, Gemara. I know some of you guys know this. Every time the Gemara says mahu desema, every time that is a havamina. That is a valid, necessary to define havamina. Ma'al Desema. You might have thought, the Gemara is telling you, think about it. Why would you have thought this way? So what would you have thought? Ma'al Desema.
What's the reason?
Kavan.
Kavan Tehuvar Hadara Wa Lemilta
Kamaisa. Kamasalan. So what would you have thought? You would have thought that what's happening when the fire goes out, what now happens? Just factually.
I mean, when the ashes get consumed, not the fire.
I'm sorry, when the ashes got consumed. Correct. So I apologize. So when the ashes get consumed, what would you have thought? That my katima was not good, and therefore I got to do a new katima. Kamash Malan, I don't. Okay. So this is such a
katima on Shabbos.
What?
Can you do katima on Shabbos?
Let's say no. It's Erev Shabbos. It's Erev Shabbos. Yeah. So, but the problem is you couldn't put the food on. Okay. Assuming okay, like in Stamach V'Yafalo, you couldn't do that because it's not considered katamed. Okay, all right. So let me ask you a question. So before looking at the second brisa, so you can give a nice, easy, pathetically easy svara for what's going on here, right? Without looking at the next brisa. I mean, this is like svara 101, right? What would you say?
This is a good intro to Christmas here.
It's the fire, the fuel source. Okay, when you do katima to that, all right, we're going to modify this later on. When you do katima to it, so what has now happened? Oh, I do katima. I put ashes on top. What have I now done?
Modify the fire.
No, I know that's what it produces. What have I done?
Modify the fire.
Modify the fire. Okay. Now the question is, when that fails, how do you now look at that fuel source?
Same.
At that point in time, okay, well, if it's the same, then what?
Then it's governor.
Don't forget, don't be too brisker. That's you're using brisker terms, right? Everyone likes using brisker terms, but no one.
Previously modified.
Okay, meaning what? So then when it comes back, well, okay. So what's okay? So how do you look at the fire?
It was still,
Okay.
does it have to be in the modified state, or if it reverts back to the previous state by the fact that you modified it to still accomplish its goal? Because you modified it, no question. It's
Right,
just
but it-
reverted back to the initial form.
I agree. But it has to all come down to how you look at that fire. Okay. In order to get back to Hesed Das,
I mean, the katima, you know it's too hot. It's probably cooking.
well, I agree. But I'm saying, but what happened to the fire? I mean, do you say? I'm just saying logically. Do you say that I put what?
Did it revert back to its normal state and therefore
Right.
lose its katima status?
Or
Did the katima, is the katima still there on its own?
but see, that's the tricky part, right? There's one side I agree with. One side, that's why I think the easier side to say it would be a problem, because what's happening? So you would say that, but when I did katima, so I modified it, right? When the modification gets consumed, what happened to that fire now? Well, now it's back to what it was, meaning you never changed it.
I mean, you
That's
did the
not true,
myself.
though. You did change it.
Did
You
you?
didn't change it.
Yeah,
You didn't
of course
change
you
it. You
did
did
change
something. You had
Change
made
it.
it as
What? Yeah, that's a das, right? But that's going to be the maskana. What's the hamid? In order for it to be a problem, what's the hamid going to have to say? You're saying your hesed das reverts back. I'm just trying to show you how does it revert back. How is it that it gets reversed?
Your husband will only emerge from the coals itself changing with coals.
Correct. So you're going to have to say that the fire, when it consumes if at any point in time fire consumes that ash you put on, by definition, what is that fire? It's A. So when I put, so let's just think, use logical, let's use letters, okay? A, fire's A, okay? When I put the ashes on top, what have I now done to A? Okay, have I, or have I really made it A prime? Because what happens is there's a big difference between A and B versus A prime. Because what have I done now? When the ashes come off,
modified A.
right? It's a modified A. So A is always there. It's just modified, right? Versus saying what?
It's totally
It's A, right? See, that's the thing. In other words, by modifying it, when I change it from I change it from A to B, that means now no, I shouldn't even say that. I put ashes on top, right? It's no longer related back to A anymore. So whatever happens to that ash, by definition, will be B.
It's now
You understand?
2.
What?
It's now 2.
Whatever, 2. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, it sounds like not such a big difference, but it's huge in order to get the next step down. So there's two, and that all goes back to Hesed Das. Okay? What I'm saying is that you got to look at it from the fuel source. There's two ways you could look at what happens by a failed katima. Either you could say that really it's always the same fire, but you modified it, or you say no, that the moment I modify it, now it is whatever happens afterwards is a new fire. So that thing that emerges afterwards when it fails is B. It's a new fire. It's a new flame. But if it's new flame, did I do my Maisa? Yeah, I'm good to go. I did what I had to do. Yeah.
Amar Rabba Bar Chana.
I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Good.
Katima Bahar
Uvara.
Barbara. Mashikin Aleha Chamin. Hochamo Kotarchan. Netavshil Shabishal Kotarcho.
Vafilu.
Yafilu Chalim Shabros.
So this is where things get really bad. Okay, this is the Chalim Shal business. Because what's unique about the Chalim Shal Look at Rashi. Yeah, Chamin Yoser.
Chamin Yoser. Mishar Yuchalim Ve'enam Mimharin
L'chabo. Stop. So they're strong. They're super strong embers or coals, and they don't go out. They don't go out for a long time. Why do we care about that? Okay, why is it important to us?
No.
So that's a big problem. Right, so that's the problem. The problem is if I put my ashes on these gechalim, right? I know when I put the ashes on that what's going to happen.
You will be consumed.
Okay, they're going to be consumed.
Well, you don't know that.
So it's one thing to say that I didn't know, not shogeg. It was one thing to say I didn't know, I was unsure what might happen, because every time you're unsure. But here, you're fairly certain, I'm not going to say 100%, but you're fairly certain that the katima is going to be destroyed. So that's why this hamlin is so difficult to understand. Why would you tell me, everyone jumps in the maskana, they say, of course, what do you mean? It's a hesed das, I did a maisa. I understand that. But the question is, there's a step here. The Gemara is saying, what would you think? The Gemara says it. Keep going. It says, yeah. Shma mina, shin mem.
Shma
Right? Okay, but 1 second. Shiny Hafa. So you'll say, what's different about the case here? Again, same as the other brisa, it's Ketima, but the Gemara says, Yihachi. Okay, because we already learned from this brisa about a failed Ketima. So what's changed in this case about a failed Ketima? It sounds like a superfluous brisa. Here it comes. Okay, keep going. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Stop. Okay, good. Sorry. So you need it to teach you about this case. Okay. So that's the hard part here. Okay. And now you're gonna have to. I'm just letting you know. You're gonna have to. Whatever we said before is gonna have to be, because this changes everything. What's problematic here? Okay. Well, what's the problem first? Don't define it. Just get the problem
I
clear.
don't believe in Mashiach.
Other than that, what's the problem here? Yeah, what's the problem? Just the problem.
Problem with coming up with a Sorah?
No, what's the Gemara's? Yeah, oh, fine. Whatever you want. Go.
The problem here is it seems just a quantitative step away from. You have to say
Why? What do you mean? Conceptually, it's a much different thing.
More fire, and that's not good enough.
No, but we know.
You have to say that, like, actually, it's for sure not going to go out with the regular Ketima process.
Correct. Well, you can't know for sure because in this case, it did go out by this case.
No, so this is for sure not going to. You have to say.
What do you mean? No, the hefech. This case here, the Ketima failed.
Yeah.
Right. This case here, it's a high. The difference between this case and this case is, in this case, what did I do? I did my normal Ketima, and what happened?
It went out.
Okay, because that can happen. Well, right, meaning it got consumed. Okay, so it can. But here,
it's for sure going to get consumed.
Okay, good.
You say for sure. If you say maybe like a little more, then you have a 65.
I agree. As far as we're concerned, when the guy puts it on there, it's going to be consumed.
Right.
But what I'm telling you is that from a combustion standpoint, is it 100% certain? Who knows? But as far as the halacha is concerned, that's what's going to happen.
The guy thinks it's going to happen.
He knows. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, second. What's the nafkamina though? I mean, without getting into Svar yet, what's the nafkamina? I, in my opinion, you have to say this. Okay. Gechal Jerusalem is one thing, right? What if? Let me ask you a question. Let's say I had a big fire. You know what a fire pit is?
Yes.
Okay, a big fire pit. And there's tons of flames coming out, and I throw some ashes on top of that. Would anyone ever consider that to be Ketima?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. You think that would be Ketima?
According to the
According to Maskana.
According to Muscovy, yes.
Real? Okay. I don't think so. Go ahead.
No, yeah.
This whole Tzvi said the best thing so far for sure, which is ignore the fires. Okay, forget that. You're right. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the original Havamina. Okay, the Havamina says that it wouldn't be good. Okay, so I want to modify what we were saying before. Okay, that too. Everyone's right. This is all an issue of das from start to finish. So let's take Hesach Hadas first. All right, the notion of Hesach Hadas. So the Havamina here is very simple. The Havamina is going to say is that, remember the Havamina is saying that it's not good. It's going to say very simple. My Hesach Hadas, you were saying this in the beginning. Okay, sort of. Your Hesach Hadas, where is the expression of Hesach Hadas tied to? In the first Havamina. I'm sorry, the first Havamina. The present state of the fire. Okay, so very simple. When I do a Ma'aseh Ketima, okay, I produce Hesach Hadas, but that Hesach Hadas is dependent on what? The state of the fire. Whereas it's tied to the Ketima. So as long as the Ketima is there, my Hesach Hadas is there. What happens when the Ketima when the ashes get consumed? No Hesach Hadas. That's easy. You'll see as we go along, we're going to go in order from least amount of das to most. So the second step, let's go for a little different. The second step is saying like this. The Maskana here is saying, I think, is saying that the Maisa you're doing is definitely sufficient to modify the fire. Okay? And insofar as, even if it reignited, you could still relate it back to the original Maisa. Okay? There's the first step, and the first step the Gemara says, the first Havamina is that my Hesach Hadas, meaning my Maisa Ketima, right? Because remember, is always related to the present state of the fire. You understand? So as long as the fire has ashes on top, my Ketima is a good Ketima. The Maskana, this first Maskana is saying no. It's saying that, what does my Maisa do? My Maisa modifies, the fire's still there, it modifies the fire in a way that does what? That even if it gets consumed, that what? It's still related back to the original Maisa. Right? So this is talking, if I lose you, I apologize, but things like this. You have Das versus Maisa. It's like a scale, okay? Well, that's not really a scale. All right, and now the question is, the Gemara is first saying Maisa really is the key here. everyone agrees it has to kadas. But the Gemara, in the first brisa is focusing on the Maisa aspect. So as far as the Maisa is concerned, is that the Maisa is related to the present state of the fire? Or do we say no, that once I do a Maisa Katima, so now I've modified it, right? And that modification always will allow it, that even if it reignites, to relate back to the original Maisa. The modification is still, the modification is the Iker. So that modification, even if it comes back again, will always relate back to the original Maisa, because it's a modified fire. No, I don't think so. Okay? So now comes the hard move. So what's it? Is that clear so far? All right. So okay. So the second Havamina, the question is like this. Okay. Since we know what, now you guys all said the right thing. When I put the ashes on the Gechalim Sharosam, what do I know? It's gonna fail. I know that. Okay. So why do we care about that?
That's not a modifying action.
What?
That's not a modifying action.
So okay. So this is where Das comes into the picture. But what do you mean? It is. I modify the fire. You can't tell me I didn't modify it.
You modify yourself.
Let's just be clear with something. You can't tell me I didn't modify it. I took ash and I put it on top of the fire. For that 10 second, whatever it is, 1 minute, millisecond, whatever that thing is, for that point in time, I modified the fire. So that's the key you got to understand. I did modify the fire, but what's lacking? Well, how do you look at this modification? Okay, meaning how do you look at this modification? What? Why not? But it is at this moment.
For those 10 seconds.
But that guy knew he knows the end.
What?
We know the end of it.
So what does that do to the nature of the modification?
So if this modification was going to last, then when the guy did it, you could say that he planned, even if it ended up messing up, when he did it, he didn't know it was going to mess up, and therefore if he did it, his DOS was, here he knows, but before he didn't, therefore you could look at what he did, and his action was a modifying action, because he didn't know that it wasn't going to modify.
Okay, so now, you realize what you guys are proposing is actually profound. I don't know if you realize it. Exactly the point. In other words, we normally look at the Maisa as simply a physical action. What this Bryce is telling you is that you got to take into account Das. So now what you're seeing is divergence. The Maisa is a Maisa of modification, but it's not Tofes is one. Why? Because I know it's not going to last. So what's that introducing to us? Your Das, meaning it has to be the Das and the Maisa have to be, as you said, connected or commensurate with each other. If they're not. Simple. So if I know this is going to go out, even though insofar as the Maisa modification is concerned, I did a Maisa, but insofar as my Das is concerned, what have I done? Nothing. That's what the Havamina is saying. So now what's the Maskana going to have to say to make this work?
It doesn't matter about your DOS.
No. Behefech. No, you don't get it. You have to say Das is the essence here. You have to say that. It's such a great... Let's just follow my logic. I mean, it's so beautiful. It's like simple. Look, let's go in order. Okay, Maisa, right? Maisa, that's the essence here, right? Now the question is, I did a Maisa, I modified it. So now the only Chiddush this is telling you is that when I modified the fire, even though by modifying it, I didn't change its essence, and it can still relate back to my original Maisa. Okay. Here, all of a sudden, we're saying is that no, because Das plays a role, and if your Das is, I know it's going to go out. If I did the Maisa, we're going to say your Das in a sense wins out to be descriptive. Okay. So what are you going to have to say here? Not that it goes by the Maisa. It's the opposite.
Maisa goes by Das.
Well, what does that mean? What does it mean to modify a fire? That's what I want to know. We made an assumption all along that we thought what it meant to actually modify a fire. Well, the Gemara is telling you, don't think of it that way. Okay, so what does that mean? So where is it modified? In your mind. What does that mean? You're right. What does that mean? You're right. What does that mean? You guys said this all along. You guys were saying this. You didn't I'm not saying this in a critical way, but you didn't understand how it fits into the flow. Everyone jumped on me when I said, well, the Maskana is here. I was like, well, what do you mean? What do you call it? He did an action of modification. But you can't say he did an action of modification based on this Havamina. You can't say that. You understand? No. Okay. You can never say that this is an action, that the Maskana is saying it's a Maisa modification, and the Maisa aspect, it just rejected that. Because what's a Maskana? So therefore one must, you understand? That's what, one must to be that.
The modification doesn't mean the Maisa itself. It's supposed to, meaning, the Gemara is divorcing the Maisa from any sort of effect.
Right. So okay. So
it's the Maisa itself that causes the modification.
So what? How do you look at this? Right. But you can't ignore Das. You can't ignore Das. I'll show you why. You can't ignore because
that is the Das is that you're modifying.
Thank you. Okay. That's the point. In other words, In other words, now, but you gotta understand. No, you gotta understand, Avi. But the emphasis isn't on the physical Maisa anymore.
Right, the Maisa is just an expression of your das.
Exactly. It's all the Maisa is an expression of my das. That's what the Maisa is. It's not the modifying the fire. We're not worried about. That's the whole beauty of this point here. We're not worried about the particulars of failing, not failing, of how much ash. That's if you're worried about the physical Maisa and then trying to align das with it. What it's ultimately the Gemara is going to have to say is that what is your Maisa modification? It's merely an expression of your das.
More intuitive to discuss it when Rashi